All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Steve Young speaks on KBR for the final time this year and gives his recap of the Super Bowl, and we'll talk about that coming up next. But we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And thanks to Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles, they're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. Give Anthony Catania a call at 831-521-5264. We're also brought to you by valleyhillroofing.net, 209-481-6851, and their websites are linked in the description. And, of course, we're also brought to you by Marin Auto Glass, marinautoglass.com on the web, 415-883-3030. Well, Steve Young always makes you feel a little better. You know, we had him on last week before the Super Bowl, and he's always great. He's always great. And one of the things I always enjoyed, about talking to him every week was just how he always had the thing in perspective. Good win, lose, or draw. He always would make you feel better after hearing his perspective. So he stopped by on KBR. I think it was Tommy and maybe Matt Kolsky, and sitting in for Copeland. And here's Steve. We'll let you hear what Steve had to say, and then we'll come back and comment on it next. Here is the great Steve Young.
So I read something today, and I'm hoping we can put this to – I think we put it to bed months ago, but it kept popping up. But when Albert Breer was talking to Spagnuolo, and he said that they had to adjust to what Purdy was doing early in the game because he was shredding our zone. We had to go to more man-to-man, and that's coming from one of the more well-respected defensive coordinators in the game. Because I don't plan on revisiting this next year unless some idiot national media member decides they want to. But even then, I'm going to fight it. Don't we have enough ample evidence that this guy can win a Super Bowl? Like, I have no problem having Brock Purdy be a quarterback on a team and thinking, even if they didn't have all this talent, I could see him winning a Super Bowl. The whole well, he has all the talent. Well, yeah, you know what? So did Peyton Manning. So did Joe. You had some talent. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that had great talent. No one's saying, give it back. I don't want all this talent. This sucks. They're going to take all they can get, but they're making it seem like Purdy couldn't do it without the talent. I'm like, no. That's not the case. I have no doubt this guy could win at the highest level with less talent. Now, you need some talent because every quarterback does, but he's fine. Like, that's not a position that I would even think about worrying about for a long time.
He had, like, the Super Bowl was not too big. It was. No. I can guarantee you there's not going to be a time. Now, strangely, the divisional game against the Packers was weirder for that, right? It was like he had that look like I don't know what the answer is. I'm not sure. So we'll have to watch in the rain in the future. We're not sure.
Yeah, the rain.
We're going to watch that closely, but there's not a moment that's going to be too big for him. He's going to be present. Even the last play of the game for him when he had to throw it away, you could see right after like he looked at it and he's like he came open, didn't he? Like and that's that awareness that we talk about that's elite and kind of supreme. And again, he told you after the championship game, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest. So what he's saying is, I'm going to do it in my own way, and I'm going to do it mostly retail. In other words, give me a great play, give me some great players, and I will light you up, right? I go back to what I just said, though. So much of the game today, not big, huge bulk of the game is doing what I just described, which is his superpower. But there's a big part of the game where he's going to have to figure out how to match. Though, if we're talking about Super Bowls, we're talking about championship football, we're talking about January, February football. He's going to have to figure out, and Kyle's going to figure out how to make him the 11th guy out of the huddle, attacking his presence to the line of scrimmage. The threat, because that is a difference maker. That is the game today, as we just talked about me, get off my lawn. And so that's the part that Brock showed signs of, but has to develop. And that's the one thing. Other than that, he couldn't ask more from a young quarterback to go do what he did.
And holy crap. We talked last week, Tom, and we said, hey, look, if those 4 defensive linemen bring it, we should be fine.
Yep.
and they brought it.
Yep.
They brought it, and I don't know if your voice is ringing in my ears in this, kind of end of the first quarter, being the second quarter is like, it's on. They bringing it. They got him running around like they don't have an answer for it.
Yep.
And so we got to make hay. And in championship football, it's like there's no feeling out. There's no. We talked about this last week. It's like if you're gonna rip it from bloody hands, you got to go. And man, we spent 3 quarters trying to get going, And the defense, I thought defensive line really brought it. I really want to tell those 4 guys, thank you. Chase Young for making up for the loaf, in the championship game.
Yep.
He decided, whatever it was, he decided, you know what, I'm gonna play every down like it's my last. And in the Super Bowl, I appreciated that effort from those 4 guys.
Yeah, novel concept when you get in the playoffs. Hey, maybe we should play hard. Maybe we should do every play like it's going to be our life. Yeah, the thing that and I'm not going to blame him for this because it's football and it happens. But the first half to me was defined by the McCaffrey fumble, because that drive was just click, 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 click right down the field.
Yep.
And then
classic, right? Classic.
And then false starts that just killed the drive. Like all of a sudden it's second 15 or second 18. Yep. You're like, well, now we're screwed because we're probably going to get 18 yards against the secondary. And it was just like little things that kept them from really putting the car in 5th gear. And they were like on that track. Like they looked like, they got this. Boom, 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 boom. They're going to score this drive. Field goal, looks like a touchdown. And then the fumble just kind of, and then the false starts and you look up and you're like, oh, we're not ahead enough. We've dominated this first half, and we're not ahead nearly enough. And I'm sure every Niner fan got the feeling that we did, because I said that was the most stressful game I think I've ever watched. It's just like that feeling in your gut, like, oh, this isn't good enough. This isn't big enough. This isn't. We had our chance and didn't take it.
Yeah, and especially in games like this, there's 25 things that I can think of, not exaggerating, that like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. I mean, but the stress was real. It was palpable in my home. My girls, their first fall of loving football, and they're pulling their hair out, man. They can't take it. Finally, I told them to take a walk. You got to take a walk. You got to go. I came up with an excuse, honey. I'm going to go put some air in the tires. I gotta get out. This is too. It's worse. It's worse not playing. Playing is not as bad as watching.
No.
Coaching, watching. If you as an ex-player, there's nothing. Honestly, it's harder watching. Like I'd rather play, and it wouldn't be nearly as stressful as watching, because you can't do anything about it. You just brutal.
You just watch. You just sit. I go, it hurts. It hurts worse after you lose. But I go, when you're playing, you're just playing. You're just trying to figure out how to win a basketball game, football game. It's like, but you don't get caught up in what everybody else is getting caught up in. And it was just. And it's so magnified. You're right. Like every little decision, like when Burford misses the block, and you're thinking, because I thought at that point, even though McCaffrey got stuffed on second down, like, well, maybe just run it twice and just go for try to get a first down here, so you don't have to settle for a field goal. But they had the play. Jennings won on that route. Like if you give Purdy an extra second, that's a first down, maybe a touchdown.
Right.
But miscommunication. And all of a sudden, Jones is in, like the one guy you don't want in. He's in. Play gets blown up, and now it's really hard to go for it, 4th and 4. So you kick the field goal, and you turn the ball over to Mahomes, and everybody at that point.
But Spagnuolo's going to get. That's the whole point. That's why they're good.
Yeah,
and that's why they've been such a better defense, is that they put you in that jam constantly. And so, I get that it happened at the worst possible time, but. I mean, can we go backwards a little bit? Because go back to the first half and even to the third quarter, like we're the best in the league coming out of halftime. Yeah, the game might be at, a lot of games were not in hand yet, and they, we had to make a statement, and we just made all kinds of statements all year long coming out of halftime. And to go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Now you're in a 1-quarter game with, you don't want to bring what is it? I don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight. I do not want to be in a 1-quarter game with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, so that's where the first 3 quarters, I look at the end of the game, I'm like, no, we shouldn't. What? No, this is not the way we're going to do this. It's not going down this way. And so I I do see the little things that happened towards the end, but so much of it was,
You're right.
the game's so wide open today, Tom, that a field goal effort from the 25 is just kind of table stakes, right? And the touchdown's the thing, but the idea that you're going to hold Pat down and especially late when things kind of you get a little more haywire, and you notice that as well the real true value in championship football in 2024. And it's been this way forever, but even more so today, is the ability to go off platform to, 4th and 1, I got it. We gotta get it down into the red zone. I got it. Even the last play, RPO, I got it. I'm going to put them on. I'm the 11th guy out of the huddle. When the 11th guy, the quarterback, can come out of the huddle and put pressure on the defense, not just for the execution, not just for the processing, because that's a superpower, we get that, but can put the pressure on the defense with his physical body, is where championship football seems like it really comes down to every year, those big moments, those big plays. And I think Patrick's just that guy that has that ability, all of it. And I think that's just, in today's world, you do not want to get in any kind of fight with that kind of a guy late. Never. No.
Yeah.
The answer is a hard no. I don't want that ever again.
Hard no.
So, Steve, you stepped into, when you became the starter for the 49ers, basically championship or bust circumstances. So I think you're probably somewhat uniquely qualified to speak to the kind of pressure that Kyle is under right now and because that's what it is for him. Nothing else matters at this point in terms of the narrative other than, can you win a Super Bowl? That's got to be incredibly difficult. And I guess fundamentally, I want to know, do you think there is anything at all to the concept of him not being able to win a big game, or is it just a matter of tough competition and, a couple mistakes?
It's just another hurdle you got to knock down, Matt. And in the end, there's, you either have the bone in your body that doesn't falter or there's some people that just don't rise up. They don't feel the moment. They don't understand it. They don't have the context. And it's like we rise up all the time. Like, I'm not afraid of the kind of flesh and bones kind of rootedness of who he is and who we are. I'm not afraid of that. But until you do it, it's the easy narrative. Now, you haven't done it. Well, really, bro? Poindexter, I didn't know that we haven't done it yet. But you have to own it. When you haven't done it, just own it. I haven't done it. That's it. Bottom line, haven't done it. No mitigating factors, not 1,000 things that went wrong. No, I haven't done it. And just recognize that it makes no sense to try to explain it or or defend it or minimize it or anything else. It's like, no, this is the ultimate thing. It's like the thing about Everest, right? It's like, oh no, I climbed K2. Oh, great, that's awesome. Have you been to Everest? No, I've been in base camp when I've climbed up and the weather came. Well, call me when you put the flag on top. And that's just the nature of life. That's the nature of competitive anything with darts. It doesn't matter. You got to get to the top of the mountain, and when you haven't been there, it doesn't mean you can't get there. That's a bad narrative. There's nothing about what they're doing, what the 49ers are doing as an organization in the locker room, what Kyle's doing, that prevents them from getting there. They just haven't gotten there, and that's just and we all know you need a lot of help. You need to catch the right. Look, we went all in this year. All in. We're going to try to go again all in next year. I get that. But just financially, from Jed, from everybody, we're all in this season. Chase Young, go get him. Get wherever. It doesn't matter. Get everybody. Anybody that can help us, go get them. And then we hit a nice, let's be honest, with the Packers and the Lions is probably as good as case scenario. We almost blew both of them, but that's a nice, if you said to me at the beginning of the year, okay, you're going to have to beat the Packers and the Lions, and then you're going to see a middling Chiefs team. Now, they got better towards the end, but the Chiefs are going to get better. They're in a transition period right now. And so that's why, to me, this one is particularly painful because we have the advantage in the roster. We have more talent than anybody. We had it set up nicely at home.
We didn't have to travel very far neither day for the Super Bowl, and we had the Chiefs not in their best year, and so we had it all. And so that's to me, that's the maddening part, is that, okay, if not now, when? And we're just going to have to go create another opportunity. And those are, you know how hard that is. We watched it. It's hard, but there's no one in the building that isn't about to go do the same thing. And if Matt, your question is, can you not win the big one? If there was something about their unwillingness, his unwillingness to go grind it out, to go get there again, then I'd say that there's a problem. But I just don't look at it that way. I look at it like you just got to keep climbing, and you'll get there. He'll get there sometime. But there's guys that, and in other words, it doesn't matter because it defines you anyway.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't get, you spent your whole career, you didn't get there. Dan Marino, I saw him recently, and it's like he wears it, and it really, it's just so frustrating for him, right? Because it's Super Bowl time, and he's like, it's just, you can't, it defines you whether you like it or not. And so that's why it means so much to Kyle to get there, and for everybody else.
Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing.
100%. They wear it all the time.
Wear it all the
Absolutely.
time. And is it fair?
And then when you get one,
doesn't matter.
You can't imagine not getting two. Like, you're like I always tell you guys, I throw up in my mouth thinking about 1998 and going to Atlanta and screwing that up. Like, what the holy hell was that? Or we talk about 92. Like, you just have so much that, so many opportunities that you had to go take another or two or three. It's just, damn.
All right, there you go. There's Steve Young on KMBR for the final time, I guess, this season. Man, and there were a few things that I took out of that interview. One, I mean, I think we all would be in agreement at this point that Brock Purdy is good enough. I don't know how good he is exactly, but he's good enough. He's got great awareness. He's got great poise. He's got great moxie. He is not the reason that the 49ers lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And the coolest thing about the Super Bowl to me was that it was really clear that the moment is not going to be too big for Brock Purdy. So it's like if they can surround him with a really good surrounding cast of players, he's going to get it done. Is it going to be this year? No, but it could be next year. But I do believe that Brock Purdy's going to win a Super Bowl. If you said bet everything you own on Brock Purdy either gets a Super Bowl or does not, I'm saying he absolutely gets it. He absolutely gets a Super Bowl at some point. I thought he won over his detractors in this game. Spagnuolo mentioned how he picked apart the zone defense. They went to more of a man look because he was crushing their zones, and the guy's poised. And he's accurate. And he plays on time. And he's got a ton of moxie, and he plays with the elite awareness and accuracy, and he's got movement ability, and he's just really good. He's just a really good player, and so that was cool to see. It was cool to see Brock Purdy as a really good football player, because that's really what he is. And then I thought Steve made a couple other points. The Niners' four starting defensive linemen with Bosa and Chase Young and Hargrave and Armstead really played ball. I thought the Niner front four really lit it up, played very hard. That was the best I'd seen them play in a long time. So that was kind of cool to see him kind of acknowledge that, yeah, you know what, this Niner D-line, which we all said, hey, they better show up. They showed up. And they played well in the Super Bowl. I love how Steve's like, man, watching it's more stressful than actually playing in the games, because, there's got to be one thing that the fans, have to call their own. And I think it's interesting that Steve would say that it's more stressful watching it than playing in the games, because then that, I think that kind of reminds the fans of when they feel so terrible when these teams lose that, even guys who played feel bad watching it, because you just have no control. You have no control at all, and you're sitting there watching your team lose the biggest game of the year. Steve also mentioned how the third quarter, the offense where they kind of went away from the run and they went 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out in that third quarter, that really was the game. And that really was. I mean, if you get into a fourth quarter battle with Pat Mahomes, you're done, Patrick Mahomes is super dangerous in the fourth quarter. The Niners lost this game in the third quarter when they kind of abandoned the run, and they just stopped scoring. They stopped scoring, and they couldn't sustain drives. So that third quarter was a killer. And then I thought Steve made a great point as well about Mahomes, is that, when it gets down to the fourth quarter, Mahomes just has, he can pressure defenses with just his pure physicality, right? I mean, he really can. He can pressure you with his arm, with his legs. He had several big runs in this game. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands. He makes really good decisions. He can do that 2-for-1 deal where basically he can run towards his weapon in the open field and get a defender pinched in between and kind of make them commit. And then if you go after him, he throws it to McCole Hardman. If you go after Hardman, he keeps it and runs it himself. I mean, it's a very, very difficult thing to defend, and he's getting really good at it. And he just, when the money's on the table, this guy rises above in the fourth quarter, and the physicality and the confidence, and as a runner, as a thrower, I mean, the guy's really, really special. And then, Steve also said the real painful part, and he's totally right about this too. The real painful part is the Niners had the better roster. The Niners had a good trip. This wasn't a vintage, Kansas City team. This was supposed to be a transition year for Kansas City. And it's like the Niners, they were loaded up, and they were all in. They added Chase Young. They added Randy Gregory, signed Hargrave, made all this, this is our year. This is it. And even in a year where they're like, this is it, you can't beat the Chiefs in their transition year when they're not having a very good year and just kind of came alive at the end of the year. And it's like, and I agree with Steve, it's like there's some part of you that feels like, hey, man, if you can't beat him this year, when are you going to be able to beat him? If you can't get the ring this year, when are you going to be able to get that ring? But, you can't think like that. You just got to keep rolling, and hopefully they'll have a good draft. Hopefully they'll build up in free agency. Hopefully they'll make the right decisions with the defensive coordinator. Man, I'd love to see Belichick. In an ideal world, I get Bill Belichick as my defensive coordinator. He brings Kyle Duggar and Josh Uche from New England, and the Niners win the Super Bowl next year in New Orleans. I think it's in New Orleans. That would be my wish. Belichick, Duggar, Uche, Super Bowl ring. You're still going to have to go find some D linemen in the draft. You're still going to have to find a right tackle. You're still going to have to figure out, the Brandon Ayuk extension and all that. But I mean, the 49ers are not that far away, but it was great to hear Steve. He's always terrific, but I mean, that was really the takeaways. I mean, the takeaways were the moment's not too big for Purdy, so long-term, Purdy's their guy. The Niner D-line, which we had been saying for weeks, better stand up, stood up. It's super painful and stressful watching it as a viewer, almost more so than playing as a player. The game was lost in the third quarter when they couldn't move the ball. And then, you can't expect to outduel Patrick Mahomes in the fourth. You just can't. And yet, you got to keep thinking good thoughts. I mean, I agree. I think Shanahan, I'm disappointed that Shanahan hasn't gotten it done, but I don't see anything really that says, what, he'll never get it done. I just don't. I can't be that fatalistic. I can't be that negative. But overall, great Steve Young interview and very interesting stuff. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to all of you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.